What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor season 44, episode 2. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and this episode of Survivor had not one but two idols found, or I guess technically they already knew where the idol was. Two keys found to get idols, and that was really exciting. Maybe a showman's blooming, so I feel like there wasn't a ton of strategic content in this week's episode, but I'm still super excited to talk about what did happen.
It was a fun episode. We started the episode off with getting some information about what we speculated last week. Okay, did Matt know the plan? Was he trying to tip off Brandon? All of that. And then people were saying, no, you're giving Matt too much credit. There's no way he thought of all of these things through. He probably was just random. But what we were speculating last time, this is exciting for Matt because he says after the tribal that he wanted the idol flushed. He wanted Brandon to stay, and he didn't want to show his cards by playing the shot in the dark. So it seems like he gets away with all of this pretty much scot-free from what we saw in the episode. He just said, oh no, I was paranoid too, so I played my shot in the dark. No one really suspected it from what we saw.
Yeah, and it was kind of a clean play because he got everything that he wanted. No one suspected him. And I feel like he didn't really get any heat. The only person who seemed to be getting heat was Kane, which was kind of what we said last week.
Yep.
So, yeah, good for Matt.
It's funny. All of the people on the internet were like, yes, Matt, we're giving him all this potential credit, which might not even be warranted if he didn't think of all of these things going through. Compared to, oh, the people on the island, we didn't see anyone, side-eyeing Matt for this move. But it is very interesting. Like, everyone on the internet was like, Matt is thinking of some things here with this potential using this shot in the dark as a strategy ploy.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one of those things where we also have the benefit of editing
Yeah.
to kind of let us know where to direct our attention. So Matt got quite a bit of focus last episode. So I feel like we were kind of nudged in the direction of like, pay attention to this guy. He's probably thinking. So
And it is interesting we hear Matt say that he wanted the idol flushed, which for me, I could be like, okay, this is a good move, but it's also could potentially be a bad move because if Matt and Brandon are like number 1 and 2, bad move to flush the idol. Like you would want the idol with Brandon, you know where it is. And if you're 1 and 2, sure, you can potentially keep one of you safe if it comes down to it. But I could also see flushing the idol from Brandon could be a good move because if people are seeing Matt and Brandon as a duo, they're going to split the votes between Matt and Brandon. Brandon's not going to play the idol for you in that scenario. So then Matt goes home because Brandon has the idol. So yes, it would make sense to flush it. Um, yeah, but a little bit dangerous though because it was weird. Everyone kept on saying, yeah, the idols are going to get rehidden, so let's go look for the idol. But in the new era, I don't think they're going to get rehidden until merge.
yeah, that seems interesting. I also feel like maybe the fact that they did the whole cage thing was supposed to be a clue to the fact that they're not going to be rehidden. Or I think one thing that could be kind of like fun and funky is if they re-put them in the cage
Mm.
and then there's that kind of like psychological element going on. So that was just what I was thinking about, where it would be really interesting if they empty the cage once someone like plays an idol, and then one day you're walking through camp and then suddenly you realize that the cage has something in it again, or that the cage's bag has like changed colors or something. So
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's a different bag in there, so you know it's been replaced with something else. But everyone knows on this tribe that Brandon had it, but oh, maybe they voted someone out with the idol and then it gets rehidden in the cage. That could be very fascinating for future seasons. But I just thought it was weird. We heard multiple people say, let's go idol hunting because Brandon just played one, so they're going to rehide another one. But they all know the idol came from the cage and now the cage is empty. So it's interesting. I feel like if I were out there for the new era, I would just assume it's not getting rehidden But like we also haven't seen anyone play the idol pre-merge in 41, 42, 43 to have it be re-hidden. So maybe they're thinking like that. But I would assume because it was in the cage, it's not going to get re-hidden, especially with they all read that clue. It has a little fake idol. It's probably not re-hidden.
Well, I think it's one of those things where assuming that it's not going to be rehidden and not looking is probably worse for you and your game than assuming it is going to be rehidden and looking for it and maybe not finding anything. Because it's kind of like if there is another idol and you don't even bother looking for it and you get voted out, you're going to feel pretty stupid. So I don't know. But
True.
I think there's also the potential that even if it's not another idol, like we've seen Beware advantages be active at the same time as an idol or something like that. So maybe they're not necessarily looking for an idol, maybe they're looking for a Beware advantage. So
True. Maybe you could find something else random in the woods under some sticks. You might as well, since you've got nothing else to do out there. So it can't hurt to necessarily, unless you're using like all of your energy to go looking, or like we see Kane looking, that might put a target on your back because you're like, this is sort of sketch. Why is he always looking? But I would say if Matt's plan was to vote Brandon out in order to find the idol that gets re-hidden, I don't think you should do that because that'd be more risky than just knowing that Brandon has the idol. Like you shouldn't use your strategy of let me vote this person out when you don't know if idols are being rehidden to try to like, steal or get the idol out from under them because you don't know if it's going to be rehidden.
yeah, it does kind of make it more difficult to be duplicitous, which might be a good thing, but also might be a bad thing because maybe like flushing idols, stealing idols is fun sometimes. But then also we talk about how it can be bad for the game if an idol is played and then immediately goes back into the ecosystem because then there can be an idol played at every tribal council basically, which isn't always the funnest. So I feel like there's balances and I'm interested to see if there really is no idols coming back into play.
Yeah, I like it. There's 3 idols until merge, and then idols could get rehidden compared to, okay, next week someone on Orange finds a new idol. Then we waste 20 minutes on them finding an idol. So I like it. There's less advantages this way.
Yes.
So, showmance time. We see a potential showmance brewing between Matt on green. So, not the same Matt on orange, but the other one on green, and Franny on green tribe. Which, when this segment came up, Matt brings up his ex again. He brought up his ex girlfriend last week in the premiere, and then he brings her up again this week. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then it cuts to, oh, a potential showmance with Franny. And he's saying that he would ask her out in the real world, which I was like, oh, that's also interesting because you were just talking about your ex 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, like it seems kind of like in rom-coms when people will talk about their ex just to be like blindsided by the person they're really meant to find. I don't know. I think it's always interesting to hear people talking about like their relationships outside of the islands. And it's also interesting. I feel like it's been a while since we had a showmance. Like it's been since Taylor and Figgy, right? In Millennials and Gen X.
Yeah, I guess it depends what counts. I think there's some discussion online about like certain people could be considered showmans versus not.
Really? I have not seen any of that discussion, so that's news to me. But yeah, I think, I don't know. Showmances can be fun sometimes, but this one was also just like, oh, you guys. Because they recognize that like being in a showmance can get them both in trouble, and they're like, okay, we should not talk to each other. And they go back and talk to each other, and it's like, oh, guys. So
I think they could be cute in the real world. Like I would ship it in real life kind of thing. In the game, maybe a little bit iffy because he keeps talking about his ex. We don't want Franny just to be like a rebound. It would be interesting though if one of them uses the other, like, oh, I know this person is into me, but I'm not necessarily into them. But you sort of string them along as like, I like you, hee hee hoo hoo, flirt with them, but you're not actually into them, and then play them like that.
Yeah, that would be mean. I feel like there's this idea that women in Survivor use their looks to their advantage. Like everyone's like, "OMG, I want to be like Parvati and, seduce men." And it's like that doesn't actually ever seem to happen or work. So,
I sort of want to see one of them blindside the other.
that would be spicy. But then they would never have a chance to work outside of the game. Maybe they part on good terms and they're dating now or something. And I don't know. I don't follow either of them on social media or anything. So
Yeah, I'd ship it in real life, but the big long rod jokes. I was like, what
yeah,
is
that was
this?
that was a little.
This is like high school flirting humor. Like I laugh because that's my sense of humor, but I'm like for national TV, I don't know if you want to be saying that.
Yeah, I was surprised the editors kept it in.
They got our sense of humor because I'm like, any potential suitor of Matt in the future, I would just pull up that like a gif of him talking about his big long rod and never let him live that down. Like you got to let that live on. Make it a birthday cake or something with a caption big long rod, and then you just got to watch your mouth. You cannot say that cuz people are going to laugh about it.
Yeah, I feel like his friends are never gonna let him live that down.
Which I think it's so funny though. I'm like that's the high school sense of humor. We got those minds.
Yeah,
But I thought it was also funny when we see like Matt and Claire talking about their stick bug that they found, or Matt and Franny talking about the stick bug. Claire is just like sitting there on the ground with like a stank face. I was like, oh, that is so funny. Her face just like, what is happening?
Claire is so funny because later in this episode, she sits out from the challenge, and she also, I guess, sat out last week? Question mark. But Jeff was like, "Was this a tribe decision or a volunteer?" And she was like, "Both." And I thought that was funny. I feel like we haven't seen a ton of Claire, but I think she's like kind of quirky and fun.
Yeah, and I think for Claire, it seems like maybe like everyone else on the tribe, oh, Matt and Franny as a duo, that's a little bit dangerous. But I think if you could be the third wheel of a showmance, that might honestly not be the worst idea because if you're the third in a showmance, people are going to target the showmance pair. Oh, let's split the votes on the showmance pair. And there's sort of like your shield in a way, and you have a solid voting block of three if you're the third wheel with two duo showmance partners, like might not be a bad move to cuddle on up and be the third wheel there.
Unless they will both turn on you to save each other, in which case that would be a very bad idea.
True, but as we've seen, everyone is scared of showmances. It might be a little bit harder for them to gain the social capital than it is for you as a third wheel to flip on them when the time comes in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd want to see it. I want to see Matt or Fernie blindside the other. I want to see Claire be the third wheel and then blindside both of them. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
So we get to the 20-minute long segment of idol finding, which I'm
Oh my
like,
goodness.
why is it so long?
So I didn't watch the episode on Wednesday, but Rachel texted me about it, and she's like, "There's like a 20-minute segment of idol finding." I didn't realize that there were two different idols found, so at least this is like a little bit better. I thought it was 20 minutes just of one tribe, but it was still a pretty long segment of idol finding. I feel like, especially because basically the same thing happened on both tribes,
Mm-hmm.
where the person found the key, they snuck over to the cage, got the stuff out of the cage, and then put the stuff back. Like, I feel like you could have maybe done the same thing you did in the premiere where you like cut the two together because basically the same thing is happening. Or like at least make one of them shorter. Because I feel like Carolyn's was a lot more entertaining just because she is like, she's a vibe, man. She's just like so chaotic about it. But yeah, I feel like that segment could have been a little shorter.
This idol segment was almost as long as Matt's big long rod. See, it's a joke that keeps on giving. I'm like, this is every single week. They should have named the title of the episode "Big Long Rod" instead of like it was about the showmance, like magnet dorks, something like that. I'm like, this would have been so funny.
Yeah.
But with the idol segment, I feel like last time in the premiere, we complained a little bit about how the idol cage segment was literally the same thing 3 times over. Similar here, idol was the same thing 3 times over. The only good part was Carolyn talking the whole thing through, and like her mannerisms and like the way she moves and talks is just so entertaining. And then she's climbing a huge tree to find the idol, a la Angelina, and then she finds a snake instead. I was like, this is just wild.
Yeah. I when she like stuck her hand in and she was like so upset about it. I thought she had found the idol and was upset that she had found it in front of everyone and then it was a snake. But yeah, it was so funny because I feel like it's interesting because Helen said something like, "Oh, Carolyn can't lie about anything." And I feel like the fact that she's like such an over the top personality actually makes it easier for her to lie. So, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that quirkiness is helping her because no one suspected that she had the idol, even though, oh, people are talking about their FBI interrogation tactics. And then the fun scene, okay, everyone was like saying it was one of the other four, and no one said Carolyn's name when she was the only person not with them at that time. And they're all like sussing each other and not the right person, which is funny.
It's so funny too because they all empty their bags in front of each other and they're all like, "Oh, we don't even need to check Carolyn's bag." And it's like, what sort of witchcraft does this woman have? Where I don't think that the idol was in her bag because I think she just put it back in her pants. But like, they didn't even check. They were just like, "Oh yeah, her clothes are everywhere. She doesn't have an idol."
Yeah, not gonna be another Gabler situation of searching through Carolyn's bag here. And then she also talks about, like, yeah, I'm used to digging through things because I dug through my son's poo for 3 days to find the tooth. I was like, oh, that's a little bit TMI for national TV. Like, I would not want that out there if that were me, but it was cute. Like, ah, she's a good mom.
Do you remember the movie Marley and Me?
Yes.
That was like a plot point in Marley and Me, except for instead of the kids' poo, it was the dog's poo, where they had to dig through it to find gold jewelry. So
Oh. The
yeah,
only thing I remember from Marley and Me is how that scarred me as a kid because you don't expect what to happen, and they let kids watch it.
I expected what happened, but that's okay.
Oh my
But
god, and
moving
no, it was like, okay, in Bridge to Terabithia, you don't expect someone to
okay,
die.
Bridge to Terabithia, you don't, but like Marley and Me, it's a movie about a dog. Dogs don't live forever.
It was so sad.
Well, we all know what's going on in Rachel's mind, but back to Carolyn. I feel like it's so interesting because it works because it's genuinely not a front when she's like acting
Mm.
all crazy and chaotic. And I feel like if someone tried to act crazy and chaotic, it would be like Tony in Game Changers, where like people were just like, what is going on? But the fact that that's just like Carolyn's personality seemed to work for her. And like, even though it seems like people aren't necessarily into her like as a strategic friend ally, I guess it seems like they do like her as a person. So yeah.
Yeah, she's a fun character. I'm interested to see for Carolyn, like, do people get sketched out by her actions that they can't trust her as an alliance member if she comes off like wishy-washy or she can't put her foot down and make a decision? Or does she come across as a good alliance member that people want to keep around?
Yeah, I think we'll probably see more of that next week. So
Man, I just hope we get some more of her stories. Like, if she's got the sun poop story, there's got to be some other good ones there. I hope they share them.
yeah, I hope so too. And maybe even if she doesn't, maybe like Ponderosa. I don't know if they're doing Ponderosa again. I hope that they are. But Ponderosa, just like story time with Carolyn, would be so fun.
Mm. Yeah, maybe instead of like the Christian challenge talking for 6 hours, we just get Carolyn's outtakes for 6 hours of her saying random things.
I would honestly listen to Carolyn talk for 6 hours, so
Yeah. So Kara gets the idol, sort of flubs it a little bit with the bag, taking the whole bag out, but then she sort of fixes the mistake and puts the bag in, but it looks very empty. Everyone else realizes it. Danny, on the other hand, he puts the bag in, doesn't look like anyone has touched it. Danny has some good one-liners. He says the worst way to find an idol is by not looking, and scared money don't make no money. So I was like, oh, yeah, you've got some nuggets of wisdom here. I like those 2 one-liners from him this episode.
I also liked when he was like, "I can't wait to tell everyone about this idol." Oh wait, I'm not gonna do that. Like that was funny. So
He's fun. He was so excited and hyped to find the key and get the idol, but then he started flossing, and I was like, "Danny,
yeah.
you are too old to be flossing."
How old is he?
It was like 35 or something. Flossing is like a Fortnite dance. Maybe he plays Fortnite. It just reminded me of Sammy grittying last season, and I was like, no,
Oh
I
no.
can't.
I didn't need to be reminded of that. But yeah, I feel like we didn't get as much of the Orange Tribe, probably because they didn't go to Tribal, but
But honestly, I hope Danny does some more dances.
do
Floss some
you?
more. I hope. It's sort of funny. I'm like, dang, this is a throwback from the past. I haven't seen someone floss in so long. When that kid got famous for flossing and then like went on all of those talk shows because he flossed really fast.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but
Maybe Danny's hip with the dances.
maybe Diddy is.
But it's interesting though with these idols, the internet sleuths have figured it out. The idol and the fake idol are different on all 3 tribes, which I do like. So even if you have like the fake idol that someone gave you on a different tribe, it's the real idol for another tribe. So you could do some super awesome strategic trickery here and like fake people out because they think they have the real idol and it looks like someone else's real idol, but it's a fake idol.
Well, I also think it's good because then people can't be like, "Oh, I know this is a fake" or something like that. So, yeah. Cuz if they're like,
Exactly.
"Oh, the real idol looks like this," then yeah.
The ruse can go on longer past the merge because if all of the idols were like the beads and then all of the fakes were the medallions, then you know anyone who has the medallion one has the fake, and then you could just tell them, yeah, yo, that's a fake. Compared to now when they're all mixed and matched, it's like, is that the real one or is that a fake one? Which it'll be interesting to see if people figure this out. Like right now, they're not going to figure it out because everyone's separated, but maybe come merge, if people could sleuth it out, like, okay, which one's real, which one's fake, and then let's trick people or pretend like this is a real one, even though I know it's a fake one, and use the fake one as a real one.
Yeah. It's going to be so fun.
Hopefully it plays out like that. Maybe it goes kaput and nothing happens. But we get to the immunity challenge. They have to race through obstacles and do the snake ball maze at the end. Like you mentioned, Claire sits out again for this challenge. I do want to know if Claire sitting out, is this part of Claire's strategy, or is it like she's the quote weakest person on the team, let's just sit her out? Because if it is her strategy to sit out to make herself look weaker, which we've heard people on Survivor season say they do to lower their target level, like, yeah, I will sit out even though I know I'm 100% capable of doing the challenge and could rock it. I will sit out to lower my threat level, or I will sit out so people won't know how good I am at puzzles. Like, if Claire is doing that purposefully, I'd be interested in hearing a confessional on it.
Yeah, it seems like maybe Claire isn't going to be a major player this season because we haven't really heard her talk about her own game. I feel like mostly we heard her talking about Franny and Matt, but I wish that there was someone else who had sat out also so that Claire could like chat with them the way she chatted with Matt last week. So
Yeah. I also love Claire's cat shirt. Like, that is such a cute crop top, and I want it.
yeah. But speaking of Matt, I feel like the big thing about this challenge was the fact that he apparently has a copy of it in his backyard and has practiced it several times, and that was why he was able to whiz through the maze at the end. And Carson said something along the lines of like, if you practice, you're going to be better than the average person. Apparently, Carson has also like 3D printed his own puzzles. So all I'm saying is that we have a series of videos on DIYing Survivor puzzles. So if you want to be like Carson and like Matt, watch Survivor Scholars.
A shout out. I like it. For Matt announcing when Jeff talks that he built this in his backyard and he's practiced it, maybe he was just so excited because he won the challenge for his team. But I'm like, yo, this is not good because why would you tell everyone like this in such a grand fashion? It's going to make you a target. People might be jealous or angry at you because it's like, oh, that's unfair, quote, that you practiced it so you were better at it. And then people might be like, yeah, let's target him because he could potentially go and win a bunch of individual immunities if he's building like a 6-foot snake maze in his backyard. Who knows what else he could be building and practicing. So let's vote him out because he could go on an immunity run because he's practiced these challenges. It just seems like a lack of foresight, and he was maybe too excited in this moment. Like, you shouldn't share this.
Yeah, I feel like also there's this idea that everyone on this season is a super fan, and so maybe you're more willing to admit that you've like done something like that because everyone else is also a super fan. But like Carson didn't be like, "Oh yeah, I did it too." So
yeah, I think be like Carson here. If you're making puzzles or practicing puzzles, buying puzzles and practicing them, keep it a secret. Only tell confessionals that you're doing this stuff. Like he was talking about the 3D printing in confessional. But it does seem weird that, like, I guess like Jeff is eating this up. He's like, yeah, these super fans, everyone should be practicing the puzzles. He loved when Evie said they were practicing the puzzle kind of thing. So I don't know if it's going to lead to maybe bad for future Survivor where like the expectation is that you're practicing this stuff beforehand, but then it also makes it less fun because if Matt can do all of these things because he's done them before, he just goes on an immunity run. Like, it's more fun when everyone is trying the thing for the first time.
yeah, and it kind of speaks also to the fact that Survivor has been reusing a lot of puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel like Survivor Australia, the episodes that we watched, didn't really have reused puzzles. So it's like, you know, if you don't reuse puzzles or don't reuse challenges, then it doesn't matter if people try to copy them. And like maybe you're still gaining skills because you're like learning how to think in 3D space or you're learning how to do like balancing type stuff, but you're not practicing that exact thing. So you can still build skills without having like a above and beyond advantage.
Yeah, it's like having the puzzle memorized versus, oh, I've done similar things. It's way different. And then it's also like a lot of people probably don't have the means or even the skills to be 3D printing these or to be buying them or to be building 6-foot things in their backyard. So it's like, oh, are we on an uneven playing field now for the people that can do this stuff and then those who can't do this stuff? I don't know. It like opens up a weird can of worms, but it seems like Jeff likes it.
Yeah, like it seems like everyone should be able to be equal or at least kind of equal. I don't know. It's this whole idea we've talked about how Survivor reflects reality and like sometimes people do start life with a leg up. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it'll be interesting to see if Matt has done more puzzles or like the Carson puzzles come up, if they can just rock it out and win. So Matt wins it for the orange team, Josh wins it for the green team, and then Sarah loses it for purple team. So purple loses. Before Tribal Council, basically from Helen's exit interviews, what we didn't get to see is that Carson and Helen knew that Sarah had lost her vote, so they knew that there's only 2 votes between them and then 2 votes of Carolyn and Jam Jam. So potentially 3-1 if they could have swayed Jam Jam with them, or more likely what we saw, Carson is probably going to flip and make it 3-1 because there's no way you're going to tie it here on the second vote 2-2.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like Carson didn't really come clean to Carolyn and Jam Jam about why he was willing to work with them. Like, he just kept being like, oh, I want to work with you. Oh, I want to work with you. And I think saying, like, hey, it's going to be a tie if I don't flip might have, like, persuaded them to be a little bit less anxious about it. But then also, maybe Carson wants them to be anxious. Maybe Carson would have loved if Carolyn had revealed that she was the one who had the idol. So
It makes sense editing wise that they wouldn't show us Sarah telling Carson and Helen that they only have 2 votes between the 3 of them, because they want to keep that tension up. Like, oh, did Carson flip or did Carson not? Is it 2-2 or is it really a 3-1? So it makes sense editing wise, but I feel like I have a lot of questions of like, okay, for Carson, did he really want to go with Jam Jam and Carolyn, or did he just do that because they couldn't flip Jam Jam kind of thing? Did Carson loop Sarah in, which seems like maybe Sarah was in on it, like Sarah knew, hey, since I don't have a vote, like you wouldn't leave her out if you were Carson. You tell her, yeah, sorry, your girl Helen is going home because we only have that many votes kind of thing. So I would like to see a flashback or some reasoning of Carson here, like why did he go there, which we probably know why he went there. Alyssa disappeared, but also I would want to know some of the reasoning behind that. And did Carolyn and Jam Jam know that there was only 2 votes going up there as well, or did they think it was going to be like everyone voting? Alyssa's
yeah,
back.
yeah, my internet blipped, so that was fun. But yeah, what you were saying, I feel like maybe it'll be the same thing as we got with Matt this episode, where like he was kind of the pivotal vote last time, and so he got a little blurb at the beginning this time. So maybe next episode we'll get a little blurb of Carson at the beginning, since he was the pivotal vote this time. I also think it's going to be interesting to see if this changes people's idols' suspicions. Like, was anyone convinced that Helen was the one who had the idol and now they don't know where the idol is? Or is there going to be more tension now between like Sarah and Carson? So I feel like this could be interesting.
It does seem like the target was on Helen over Sarah because people thought that Helen had the idol. So I would also be interested, do they think they flushed the idol with Helen going home? Obviously, if Carolyn plays it coming up, they would know that Helen didn't have the idol. But that's why I was also questioning, okay, if it's between Helen and Sarah went to the island, so wouldn't you want to target Sarah because you think she could have an advantage, which she does. We know she won something at the island and she didn't just lose her vote, but she did also win something. So I was like, oh, why aren't they targeting Sarah? But I guess it makes sense. Okay, if you think Sarah and Helen both have advantages, but you don't know what Sarah's advantage is, and you think Helen has the idol, which is more powerful, then it makes sense to target Helen. But if you just think they both have, if you didn't think Helen had something and you just thought Sarah had something, you'd probably want to vote for Sarah.
Well, then also, if you are Carson, who knows that Sarah like genuinely doesn't have a vote, then you might not think like, oh, you lose your vote, but you also get something, because that's not really the way that it's worked before. Like, it's always been an either or thing. So
True. Yeah. So she could have played it off well. And yeah, I just lost my vote. It was like the risk reward thing she was talking about last time. But Helen looked so sad when she got voted out. I was sad.
yeah, I was sad too, but also, I feel like everyone's sad when they get voted out. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the way the game goes. Someone gets their hopes and dreams crushed at the end of the episode. So it's always sad.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for next week. It's always a fun time on Wednesdays. So I'm excited to see all of the tribe dynamics. Hopefully, maybe Green Tribe goes to tribal since we haven't seen them go to tribal yet.
Yeah, that would be fun, but also it would be also interesting to see the continuation of the Purple Tribe drama. So, yeah. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode. Who do you think is going home next? Do you think that it was a smart move for Carson to flip and vote out Helen, or should he have voted out Carolyn? Let us know all that and more in the comments down below, and we will see you guys next week.